They say the worst betrayals don't come from enemies. They come from the people sitting closest to you at Christmas morning. My daughter-in-law destroyed 6 months of my life in 30 seconds. I'm a cancer survivor 3 weeks out from my final round of chemotherapy. Still counting the days since my veins stopped burning from the poison that kept me alive. 6 months of radiation, trembling hands, and restless nights spent carving meaning out of pain. And in the middle of all that, between the sterile hospital corridors and the quiet hours of fear, I crafted something. A promise, a legacy, a family ring. Every evening after treatment, when the world dimmed and my body ached, I'd sit at my workbench, magnifying glass, trembling between fingers that could barely hold a file. I forced my hands to obey, shaping white gold into a perfect band. Inside it, for birthstones each, representing a grandchild I might never meet. Ruby for July, David's birth month. Emerald for May, Patricia's birthday. Sapphire for September. Diamond for December. They shimmered beneath the lamp's glow, each one whispering the same silent prayer. Please, let me live long enough to see them born. It wasn't just jewelry. It was my heartbeat hammered into metal. My testament that love endures even when the body fails. I engraved those very words. Love endures inside the band, one shaking letter at a time. It took me 3 weeks to get it right. I cried the night I finished. My jeweler friend Frank told me it looked like something you'd find behind glass in a museum. I didn't tell him that I made it for the one person who'd never see its worth. Christmas morning arrived crisp and sharp, sunlight filtering through frosted windows. 15 family members gathered around the tree. Patricia, the Dr. Tooby, the crown jewel of our family, arrived late, as always, stepping out of her new BMW like she was dismounting a throne. Designer heels, Tiffany necklace glinting, hair styled in that perfect salon wave that never moved. My son David trailed behind her, smiling too hard, trying to keep the peace. I sat near the fireplace in my worn cardigan, the one with the burn holes from radiation treatments, a faint smell of antiseptic still clinging to it. My medical bracelet caught the glow of the Christmas lights every time I lifted my cup. Lymphoma patient chemotherapy. I could feel the stares, the pity, the silent wish that this might be my last holiday. One by one, the gifts were opened. Patricia's were extravagant Trolex for David, expensive wine for Martha, gift cards for everyone else. Cold, efficient, soulless. When my turn came, I slid the walnut box across the floor to her. I'd made it from the same tree Margaret and I planted when David was born. Even the satin cushion inside was hand-stitched. I made this for you, I said quietly, my voice barely steady. For our family's future. She lifted the box like it might contaminate her manicure. For a fleeting second, when the ring caught the Christmas lights, I saw something flicker behind her eyes, recognition, maybe even emotion. But then her lips curled. Really, Samuel, she sneered, holding it up between 2 fingers. This is what you've been working on. She laughed, sharp and cruel. 6 months for this. You could have gone to K Jewelers and saved yourself the embarrassment. The room froze. David's smile vanished. My sister Martha stopped mid-sip of her coffee. My heart felt like it had been dipped in ice water. Patricia, I tried. I spent six months. She interrupted, louder this time, turning toward the room like a performer hitting her mark. Everyone, look at this. Samuel made me a craft project. Isn't that sweet? The word sweet dripped poison. My nephew Jake tried to speak up. Actually, Patricia, it looks really well made. Those stones are Jake. Please, she cut him off, rolling her eyes. I know quality when I see it. This belongs in a dumpster, not on someone's finger. Then she looked right at me and delivered the killing blow. Samuel, maybe focus on not dying before you take up new hobbies. The silence was deafening. You could have heard the fire crackle across the room. David's face went pale. Even Patricia's own mother looked horrified. But me, I went still. Completely still. Because in that moment, after months of trembling hands and endless nausea, felt something sharper than anger. Clarity. Patricia had no idea who she'd just humiliated. I set my coffee down carefully, reached for my phone, and took a long, steady breath. Because what she didn't know was that I wasn't just a dying man making trinkets. I was the Miller Foundation, the anonymous benefactor, who had been paying every penny of her medical school tuition for the past 4 years. $280,000, quietly, patiently, and tonight, it was time to collect, but she wasn't done. When someone shows you their true face, they don't stop halfway. David whispered, Patricia, that was out of line. David, stop, she said, raising her hand like a surgeon silencing an intern. Your father needs to hear this. We all do. It's time we stop enabling his delusions. Delusions. That's what she called my 6-month fight against death. My legacy, my love. She stood up, pacing in front of the Christmas tree, the ring glittering between her fingers. Samuel, I'm going to be a doctor. I deal with reality, with evidence. This, she waved the ring like trash, isn't reality. It's a sick man's fantasy project. Look at yourself. You can barely hold a cup, but you think you can make jewelry. The tremor in my hand betrayed me as I reached for my water. The cup rattled against the saucer. See, she smirked. Those shaking hands probably couldn't thread a needle. How am I supposed to wear something made by someone who can't even control their own body? Patricia, Martha said sharply, he has cancer. Exactly my point, Patricia snapped, her tone triumphant. He's dying, Martha. He's wasting what time he has left making trinkets. It's pathetic. She turned to the mantel, where a photo of Margaret smiled down on us, all soft, kind, eternal. Patricia stared at it for a moment, then delivered the cruelest line I'd ever heard. You know what's really sad? Margaret was probably relieved when the cancer finally took her. At least she didn't have to watch Samuel embarrass the family anymore. David shot to his feet. Enough. You don't get to talk about my mother. Like what? She snapped. Like your father wasn't a failure. Look around, David. 60 years old, a mortgage he'll never pay off, and a hobby that looks like it came from a gumball machine. Her eyes locked on mine, cold and clinical. You're dying, Samuel. We all know it. Why don't you do something useful instead of making everyone pity you? That word burden hung in the air like smoke. She crouched beside me, eyes gleaming with fake sympathy. Honey, she whispered, loudly enough for everyone to hear. I know you're scared, but making ugly jewelry won't make you live longer. It's just embarrassing for all of us. I could smell her perfume sweet, suffocating. She stood, brushed invisible lint from her designer dress, and laughed softly. Maybe next you'll try painting pottery, or finger painting at the nursing home. Basic hobbies for basic people. 47 years as a master jeweler, and with theatrical cruelty, Patricia walked to the Christmas tree, held my ring to the light, and said, "You know what this reminds me of? The crafts they make in nursing homes. It's the same desperation." She smirked. "But don't worry, I'll find somewhere to donate it. Maybe a children's hospital. They appreciate handmade things there." That's when I reached for my phone again, because Patricia had just signed her own verdict. My hand was steady, rock steady. I opened the banking app, and the Miller Foundation account glowed on screen. $283,412.67. Every tuition bill, every textbook, every dorm fee in full by the dying man she'd just humiliated, as she bragged to David's cousin about managing expectations with elderly relatives. I smiled quietly for the first time that night, because Patricia was about to learn a lesson no medical school could ever teach her, and Christmas morning had only just begun. "The thing about elderly people," Patricia said, her voice cutting through the low murmur of post-gift chatter like a shard of glass through silk, "is that they lose perspective. They think their little hobbies matter because they're desperately clinging to relevance." Her wine sloshed slightly as she gestured toward the ring, its faint gleam catching the twinkle of the Christmas lights. Jake, standing nearby, shifted uneasily. The fire crackled behind her, flames dancing in soft orange reflections against the polished surface of the family portraits. My wife's photo, Margaret's photo, hung just above Patricia's perfectly coiffed head, her gentle eyes watching the spectacle unfold. The irony was suffocating. Jake tried to interject, his voice tentative. "Patricia, maybe we should." "No," she cut in sharply, lifting a manicured finger. "This is important." Her tone had the brittle authority of someone who'd mistaken cruelty for intelligence. "People need to stop treating delusion as courage. Look at Samuel. He spent months playing pretending he's strong, pretending he's an artist, pretending he's not dying." She laughed softly, almost pitying. "It's sad, really." That laugh echoed through the living room, bounced off the garland-wrapped mantel, and landed somewhere deep inside me, an echo that turned cold, metallic. Every ounce of warmth I'd tried to preserve through chemo, every fragile hope I'd kept alive while crafting that ring, it all froze. In that sound, David's voice cut through the tension. "Patricia, enough." His tone wasn't pleading anymore. It was a warning, low and shaking. But Patricia didn't even turn to look at him. Her gaze was locked on me, the dying man she thought she'd broken. "You see, Samuel," she continued, her words slow and deliberate, "this is what happens when people can't let go. They make little trinkets to trick themselves into thinking they've left a mark. But let's be honest, this," she held up the ring, twisting it between her fingers, "isn't legacy. It's pity disguised as purpose." David took a step forward, his fists clenched. "That's my father you're talking about." "Your father," she said, smiling faintly, "is a man who can't accept reality. And you, David, you enable it. That's why he still thinks this." She shook the ring for emphasis. "Matters." The words hit like a punch. Around the room, people avoided eye contact. The only sound was the soft hum of Silent Night, still looping from the Bluetooth speaker. Its piece now grotesquely out of place, and then something inside me clicked. A subtle shift, like the quiet turn of a key in a long-forgotten lock. I stepped forward, slow and deliberate, every movement measured. The room seemed to tighten around me, every eye turning as the air thickened. "Patricia," I said quietly. She froze mid-sentence, that self-satisfied smirk faltering just slightly. "You've made your point. You think I'm weak. You think this ring is meaningless? But I'd like to share a little story with everyone here, since you seem to enjoy honesty." David's eyes widened slightly. He knew what was coming. I took a slow breath, my fingers brushing the cool edge of my phone in my pocket. 4 years ago, I began. A young woman got accepted into medical school. She couldn't afford it. Her fiancé called his father desperate because they didn't want to delay their future together. So that father fool that he was set up a foundation, an anonymous one. He didn't want credit, didn't want gratitude. He just wanted to see his son happy. The room was completely silent now. Even Patricia's mother had stopped breathing. Patricia's face had gone still, her smile frozen halfway, like she'd suddenly realized she'd stepped into something deep and dark. "This foundation," I continued, "was called the Miller Foundation. It paid for everything's tuition, books, living expenses. Over 4 years, that father sent $280,000 to a student who never once thought to wonder why her anonymous donor never revealed himself. She just assumed she'd earned it, that she deserved it." Patricia's wine glass trembled. "That's Samuel. That's not funny." "Oh, it's not a joke," I said softly. "You, Patricia, you were the beneficiary." The color drained from her face. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. "For 4 years, I said, my voice low and steady, I watched you build your dream on the back of my sacrifice. Every check, every semester, every smug little post about your mysterious angel investor. You called it divine luck. I called it hope." Patricia's mother whispered her name, but Patricia didn't respond. She just stood there, eyes wide, her mouth working silently. I took another step closer. "And today, after you mocked the one thing that kept me alive during chemo, after you spat on your mother-in-law's memory, after you humiliated me in front of everyone I love," I paused, letting the words hang heavy in the air. "You've officially run out of luck." I took out my phone, unlocked it with a calmness that felt almost inhuman, and dialed the first number. "Dr. Hayes," I said into the phone, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Yes, this is Samuel Miller from the Miller Foundation. I'd like to terminate the current scholarship recipient's funding effective immediately." Patricia lunged forward. "Wait, Samuel, you can't." I held up my hand, silencing her. "Please ensure her account is flagged for full repayment. And Dr. Hayes, one more thing. I'll be redirecting those funds to the American Cancer Society, effective today." Patricia's breath hitched. You wouldn't." "Oh, I would," I said quietly. "Because, unlike you, Patricia, I understand what meaningful work actually looks like." I ended the call and turned to face her fully. She looked small now, her perfect posture crumbling. The room was silent except for the faint hiss of the fireplace. "You said I should focus on not dying," I said. "So I did. I focused on living long enough to teach you a lesson you'll never forget." Patricia's hand shook as she reached into her purse, pulled out the ring, and stared at it like it had turned to poison. Then she dropped it. The sound of metal on hardwood echoed like a gunshot. No one moved. No one spoke. The ring rolled across the floor, came to rest beneath Margaret's photograph, catching a single glint of light from the Christmas tree. That's when I smiled. For the first time in months, my hands were steady. And in that silence, with Patricia's world collapsing, and the faint carol whispering sleep in heavenly peace, I realized something. Revenge doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just rings. But let me show you what true craftsmanship looks like. The room had gone utterly still, like the air itself refused to breathe. The Christmas lights flickered against the walls, their reflections dancing over the shattered stem of Patricia's wineglass and the thin veins of red soaking into Margaret's rug. Patricia stood there, trembling, her designer dress now splattered with the evidence of her own arrogance, her perfect image cracking in real time. My hands didn't shake as I slipped the phone back into my pocket. There was no triumph in me, only a calm, hollow certainty, the kind of silence that comes after a thunderclap. You called my work infected garbage, I repeated, my voice lower, heavier now, each word deliberate. But what I built, what I made with my hands, will outlast everything you ever touched. Every piece I forged carried meaning, love, memory, the kind of purity you can't buy with grants or grades or borrowed money. David was standing beside the mantel now, jaw clenched, eyes blazing. Martha had one hand over her mouth, the other gripping the back of a chair. Patricia's breath came in shallow gasps, her mind clearly racing to assemble a version of the story that could still make her look like the victim. Samuel, she whispered, her voice cracking. Please, I didn't mean any of it. You have to believe me. Oh, I believe you, I said, quietly. I believe every word you said tonight. Because wine doesn't invent truth, Patricia. It just removes the mask. She stepped forward, desperate now, her heels clicking on the wood like gunshots in the silence. I was just angry. I didn't mean to disrespect Margaret. I cut her off with a look. You spoke her name without love. You used it as a weapon. That's not anger. That's cruelty. She froze, lips trembling, the mask gone entirely now. What am I supposed to do? She whispered. Medical school is over for me. I'll lose my placement. I'll lose everything. I nodded slowly, the faint hum of the Christmas lights filling the silence. Yes, I said softly. You will. That's what happens when you destroy the hands that were holding you up. Patricia turned toward David, eyes wide, pleading. David, please, say something. You can fix this. You can talk to him. David didn't move. His jaw flexed, and when he finally spoke, his voice was cold. You mocked my father. You mocked my mother. You spent his money like it was an endless faucet. And now you want me to defend you. Her lower lip quivered. I love you, David. No, he said. You love what I could give you. There's a difference. The sound that came from her throat was almost inhuman, part sob, part gasp. She turned toward me again, frantic now. Please, Samuel. You don't understand what it's like. The pressure, the competition. I just wanted to belong. I took a step closer, and when I spoke, it was barely above a whisper, the kind of tone that makes people lean in. You wanted to belong so badly that you became everything ugly you ever feared being: entitled, cruel, soulless. But belonging doesn't come from money or names on plaques. It comes from grace. And tonight, you showed me you have none. The clock on the wall ticked, once, sharp, metallic, final. Take off the ring, I said quietly. She looked down at it, her fingers trembling. Please, she whispered, take it off. She slid it off her finger with shaking hands and held it out to me like a confession. I didn't move. "Keep it," I said after a long pause. "A reminder of everything you lost tonight." Her voice broke completely. "Samuel, please don't do this. I can't come back from this. I'll have nothing." I stepped past her, toward the mantel where Margaret's picture sat, her eyes frozen in time, that soft smile still full of quiet strength. I straightened the frame, brushed a bit of dust from the glass, and said softly, "Then maybe you'll finally understand what it means to build something from nothing." Patricia sank to the floor again, sobbing, her words dissolving into the sound of her own collapse. Martha crossed the room slowly, placed a hand on my shoulder. "You did the right thing," she murmured. "Maybe," I said, "but the right thing still hurts." I turned back one last time. Patricia was staring up at me, face streaked, mascara bleeding into the tears on her cheeks. "I never meant to hurt you," she whispered. "You didn't hurt me," I said, walking toward the front door. "You just showed me where the knife was." The air outside was cold, sharp. Snow had started to fall thin, soft flakes catching in the porch light. I looked back through the window one last time. Patricia was still there on the floor, David standing apart. Martha silent. The door clicked shut behind me, and for the first time in years, I felt alive. But as I walked down the steps, a faint sound drifted from inside, glass breaking again, followed by Patricia's voice, low and furious, the tone of someone who had just crossed from desperation into something darker. I paused, hand on the railing, and smiled faintly. The story wasn't over. Not yet. Snow was falling that night, soft, soundless, indifferent, as Patricia Wilson's perfect world collapsed around her. The same snow that had blanketed the roof above our heads while she'd mocked me, called my work infected, my wife's memory pitiful, and my life a burden. I remembered every word. "Margaret died miserable, watching you fail at everything. You're just a burden on David." Those sentences had cut through me like shards of ice then, but now they came back with the quiet satisfaction of justice taking shape. I turned to her, my voice low, deliberate, the kind of tone that can freeze blood faster than anger. "You said I was a burden," I told her. "That my wife died miserable, that my craft, my work, my legacy meant nothing." Patricia's hands trembled around her phone. The wine had worn off. The arrogance had drained out of her face. All that remained was the pale outline of a woman beginning to understand the cost of her own cruelty. So I continued, my voice calm, almost clinical. "Let me give you a little reality check. Dr. Wilson, you're about to graduate with $280,000 in debt. At current interest rates, that's roughly $3,000 a month in loan payments. Your residency salary." I let the pause hang in the air until she finally whispered, "About 4,000. "Exactly," I said. "That leaves you $1,000 to live on per month for the next 25 years. Unless, of course, you find another generous benefactor." The color drained from her cheeks. Her breathing became shallow, her lips parting but no words forming. I reached down and picked up her purse from the coffee table. Inside, I found what I was looking for, the ring. My ring. The one she had called infected garbage. I held it up between us. The light from the fireplace caught in the silver, glinting against the delicate engraving of Margaret's name. This ring you threw away, I said quietly. I had it appraised last week, $2,800, about 1 month of your student loan payments. I turned and placed the ring on the mantel beside Margaret's photo. It stays here, with family, the kind who understands what love and sacrifice actually mean. Patricia's composure finally shattered. Samuel, please, she begged, voice cracking. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. But ruining my life won't, I cut her off. I didn't ruin your life, Patricia. I just stopped paying for it. The silence that followed was deafening. Then my phone buzzed. A notification glowed on the screen. Your donation is confirmed and will immediately begin funding Dr. Sarah Chun's breakthrough lymphoma research. Thank you for helping save lives. I turned the screen toward her. There, I said softly. Your money is already saving lives, real ones. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The Christmas tree lights hummed faintly. You could hear the wind outside, the faint ticking of Margaret's old clock. Then Patricia's phone began to buzz, again and again and again. She answered one call with trembling hands. Yes, this is Patricia Wilson. What? How did you? Yes, I understand. She hung up slowly, staring at me like she'd just seen the ghost of her own future. That was the university financial aid office, she whispered. They want to see me first thing Monday morning to discuss my loan restructuring. Another buzz. Then another dot. David spoke quietly from the corner. Patricia, maybe you should go home. She gave a broken laugh. Home. To the apartment I can afford because I thought I had a scholarship. Her voice rose an octave, almost hysterical. David, I have $800 in my checking account. That's supposed to last me until residency. Her phone rang again. Dr. Peterson from Student Services, she said, answering. Yes, I received the email. Monday at 9. I understand. When she hung up, her hands were visibly shaking. They're reviewing my financial aid status. Something about significant changes in donor funding. Martha, sitting across the room, leaned back in her chair with a look of grim fascination. Patricia, she said slowly, how exactly did you think this was going to work? You destroy the man who's been paying your bills, and then what? He just keeps sending checks out of gratitude. Patricia didn't answer. Her phone lit up again, a notification this time. She froze. It's my study group, she whispered. Someone posted about this. She turned her screen toward us. A Facebook post from Jake's wife, Sarah. When you find out your daughter-in-law has been verbally abusing the man who's been anonymously paying for her medical school. Some people have no shame. 43 comments already. This was posted 20 minutes ago, Patricia said, her voice breaking. How many people do you think have seen it? Another call. She stared at the screen. It's my mother, she answered, voice trembling. Hi, Mom. Yes, I saw the post. No, it's not exaggerated. Yes, he really did pay for everything. No, I didn't know. Her mother's voice grew loud enough for everyone to hear words like ungrateful, disgusting. How could you? Echoing across the room. When Patricia hung up, her eyes were red and glassy. She wants me to drive home to Portland tonight, she whispered. She said she's never been so ashamed of me. David finally stood, his tone measured but final. Patricia, I think you should pack a bag. What? I think you should stay with your mother. Figure out your next steps. Her face twisted. disbelief turning to desperation. David, you're my husband. We're supposed to work through problems together. He met her gaze. What you did today wasn't a problem, he said. It was character assassination of my father on Christmas, in front of our entire family. Her phone buzzed again. It's getting shared, she said numbly. Sarah's post. It's spreading. She scrolled, her fingers shaking. Someone commented, old man's revenge level nuclear. Another comment made her freeze. They're using my full name. Patricia Wilson, University of Washington medical student. They're screenshotting everything. The phone rang again. Dr. Matthews, she whispered. My residency director. The call went unanswered, then rang again. He's calling back. Her voice cracked. What if they revoke my residency? What if they? David's reply was ice. Then maybe you should have thought about that before humiliating a cancer patient in front of his family. Martha leaned forward. Patricia, let me explain something about consequences. You spent 10 minutes tonight showing us exactly who you are when you think no one important is watching. Now, everyone important is watching. Another ring. Patricia hesitated, then answered, Hello, who is this? Her expression changed instantly. A reporter from the Seattle Times. How did you? She hung up, her breathing ragged. Someone gave my story to the news. David was already heading toward the bedroom. I'll get you a suitcase. David, wait, no, Patricia. You called my mother's memory worthless. You mocked my father's cancer. You humiliated a man who spent his life savings on you in my house on Christmas Day. He stopped in the hallway, his silhouette framed in the soft glow of the tree lights. I need time to decide if I'm still married to someone capable of that. Patricia looked around the room, 15 silent witnesses. Every face a mirror of disgust or disbelief. Her phone buzzed again. She glanced down and went pale. It's on Reddit. Pro-revenge. 12,000 upvotes already. She turned to me, eyes swollen, mascara streaked, desperation written across her face. Samuel, please. Is there any way to undo this? Any way to fix it? I looked at her for a long time, then out the window at the falling snow. Patricia, I said softly, some things can't be fixed. Some words can't be taken back. Some damage is permanent. I turned to face her fully. You wanted me to face reality. Well, here's yours. You're about to learn what life costs when no one else is paying for it. 3 months later, the world outside Swedish Medical Center was bright with early spring sunlight. I sat across from Dr. Thompson as he turned the lab. Report toward me. The words were highlighted in yellow. Complete remission. He smiled. Samuel, your lymphoma is completely undetectable. The treatment worked better than we hoped. I stared at the report, unable to speak. Somewhere in the distance, I could almost hear Margaret's laugh, soft, proud, radiant. That day, I realized something. Patricia lost her benefactor, but I found my reason to live. The morning light filtered through the curtains like liquid gold, soft, quiet, and alive. And for the first time in years, it didn't feel like a countdown. It felt like a beginning. Turns out, focusing on not dying was excellent advice. Just not in the way Patricia had intended. There was an irony in that. The kind of irony that life reserves for moments when its humor turns poetic. My phone buzzed against the kitchen counter, the vibration echoing faintly through the stillness of the house. A new message. James Morrison, American Cancer Society. The words glowed on the screen. Your donation helped fund Dr. Chen's breakthrough protocol. The treatment that saved your life is now saving others. 14 patients in remission so far. 14 lives. I stared at the text for a long time, the gravity of it pressing gently against my chest. 14 families who wouldn't have to say goodbye. 14 sets of eyes that would still open to the faces they loved. That's what Patricia's education money had become. Not degrees, not status, not vanity, but life. The ultimate transformation. Meanwhile, Patricia's story had gone the opposite direction. She dropped out of medical school in February. The financial pressure had finally caught up. Tuition debt reinstated, donors withdrawn, her name scorched across the internet like a cautionary headline. Even with maximum student loans, she couldn't keep up. Rent, food, gas, everything had weight now. The kind of weight she once mocked others for carrying. Last I heard, she was back in Portland, living with her mother, working at a medical supply company. The divorce came through last month. David handled it quietly. No spectacle, no anger, just silence, and a final signature that ended the chapter. He moved back in with me for a while. The house had room, and maybe we both needed the company. He was different now, calmer, reflective, the sharpness in his voice, the one that used to mirror Patricia's, was gone. One afternoon, while we were on the roof replacing old shingles Patricia once joked would collapse before you finish your next project, he paused mid-hammer and said, "Dad, I owe you an apology." I looked at him over the edge of the roof, the winter sunlight glinting off his safety glasses. "For what?" "For not seeing who she really was," he said. "For letting her treat you like that for so long." I handed him another screw, the wind whistling faintly around us. "Son," I said, "sometimes people show you their true character when they think it doesn't matter." He nodded slowly. "Patricia thought you were powerless," he murmured. "She did," I said. "That's why she felt safe being cruel." "But you weren't powerless," he said softly. I smiled faintly. "No," I said, "I wasn't." Inside, on the mantel, the ring sat beside Margaret's photograph, the same ring Patricia once called infected garbage. David caught himself looking at it sometimes, turning it over in his hands as if rediscovering something sacred. "You know what's funny?" he said one day. His tone caught somewhere between awe and disbelief. "She was right about one thing. This is museum-quality work. I had it appraised again, $4,200. The irony of that still makes me smile." Sarah's Facebook post, the one that started it all, went viral far beyond what anyone could have imagined. 50,000 shares, millions of views. Someone even turned it into a TikTok montage. Gentle music, captions in white text, my story told through strangers' voices. 2 million people watched the fall of Patricia Wilson and the quiet endurance of an old man who refused to let cruelty go unanswered. Then came the letters. Dozens of them, from cancer patients, from people betrayed by family, from children who'd lost their parents and found something healing in my story. They didn't see revenge. They saw boundaries, dignity, love with a backbone. One letter, though, stood out. It was handwritten from a young woman named Ellen in Ohio. "Mr. Miller, I'm a nursing student. My mother-in-law has been paying my tuition quietly for years. After reading your story, I drove to her house with flowers and a thank you note. We cried together. You reminded me that generosity deserves gratitude, not entitlement. I held that letter for a long time. That's when I realized Patricia's cruelty hadn't been wasted. It had been transmuted, turned into something useful. Her public humiliation became a mirror for others, a lesson about appreciation, kindness, and the fragile beauty of gratitude. The house feels lighter these days. The air isn't heavy anymore. We have dinners again, real ones, with laughter and the clink of dishes, with stories that don't end in tears. Martha comes over every Sunday with her infamous lemon bars. Jake and Sarah visit often. Even Margaret's old friends have started to return, filling the rooms with familiar warmth. No one mentions Patricia anymore. Her name's become a moral, a story told quietly about the difference between what's earned. Jewelry making, of all things. The community college offered me a position after hearing my story. They thought someone who could make art despite trembling hands might have something worth teaching. Turns out they were right. My first class had 12 students, cancer survivors, people with Parkinson's, elderly hobbyists who wanted to feel capable again. The first day, an older woman named Rose, 73, fighting breast cancer, held up a silver bracelet she'd just finished soldering. "Professor Miller," she said shyly, "be honest. Does this look amateur?" I examined her work under the lamp. Clean lines, even joints, steady detail, despite the shake in her hand. "Rose," I said softly, "that's the work of someone who put love into every hammer strike. That's not amateur anything," she cried, right there in the workshop. And the others joined in. That's when I understood what Patricia never could. The value isn't in the perfection of what you make. It's in the intention, the love, the hope that it carries something of you after you're gone. The ring, the one that once symbolized pain and betrayal, now stands for something else. It's a reminder of boundaries, of the quiet strength it takes to say enough. It's proof that compassion doesn't mean submission, and that love without respect isn't love at all. David's seeing someone new now, Emily, a nurse from the oncology ward. She understands patience, kindness, and the weight of watching people fight for their lives. When I showed her the ring, she held it delicately, tracing each gemstone with reverence. "This is incredible craftsmanship, Mr. Miller," she said softly. "The person who receives this will treasure it forever." That's the difference between those who appreciate and those who expect at night. When the house goes still and the lights hum low, I sometimes find myself speaking to Margaret's photo. I tell her about the classes, about David, about how life has unfolded since that brutal Christmas morning, about how the world turned Patricia's arrogance into a parable, and our pain into peace. And though she can't answer, I imagine what she'd say if she could. "You did it right, Samuel. You didn't destroy her. You simply stopped saving her." Patricia wanted independence from the dying old man's charity. I gave her exactly what she asked for. And in the quiet that followed, I found something even rarer than revenge. I found freedom.